The most horrific true cases stories. There are many unresolved murder cases in the world, and few things are more terrifying. In some cases, we find it difficult to accept the court's decision, even after it has been rendered. Some of the most well-known murder trials that have shocked the globe are featured in this video. Murderers have occasionally been found, put on trial, and punished, while some situations are still unresolved and may never be. One of the strangest incest cases is the tale of Katie and Stephen Pladl. A whirlwind of emotion and occurrences drives this narrative. The crime is so horrible in its very nature that it will be difficult for you to comprehend. Stephen Pladl, who was 20 years old at the time, connected with Alyssa Gracia, then 15, online in 1995. They began dating, and soon after, Alyssa became pregnant. In January 1998, Denise was born. Alyssa claims that Stephen mistreated their infant daughter at a time when the couple was young and struggling financially. Stephen, according to the woman, would pinch their infant daughter until her skin turned black and blue. Alyssa remained with Stephen in spite of everything and eventually got married to him. Denise was then placed up for adoption when she was 8 months old because Alyssa was concerned that her child might not have a healthy childhood. Denise's previous name was changed to Kitty Fusco once Anthony took her in. She moved to Anthony and Kelly's house in Dutchess County, New York. Katie's foster parents treated her with love and care, treating her like one of their own children. Katie became a brilliant student at Dover High School who excelled at drawing comic cartoons. After high school, she planned to attend college and work in digital advertising. When Katie turned 18 in January 2016, she began to question who her real parents were. She sent messages to Alyssa and Stephen on social media when she started looking for her real parents. They were happy to see her again. Katie had planned to go to a local community college when she graduated, but she finally decided to live with her parents. Alyssa and Stephen's relationship was already in danger. The two had been sleeping in separate beds before Katie came. She even told Katie that her biological father had abused her as a baby, but Katie didn't think much of it. After meeting Katie, Stephen's behavior underwent a complete transformation. He took care of himself, started wearing tight-fitting shirts and jeans, shaved his beard, and allowed his hair to grow long. After living there for 6 weeks, Stephen began to sleep on the floor in Katie's room. He became irate and walked out of the house with Katie when Alyssa confronted him. The home was abandoned by Alyssa in November 2016. She and Stephen split custody of her other 2 kids. Although Alyssa had her suspicions about the father-daughter relationship, she lacked hard evidence. In May 2017, Alyssa discovered Katie and Stephen were having an extramarital affair and that Katie was expecting. Stephen instructed her and her sister to refer to Katie as their stepmom rather than their sister. Alyssa asked Stephen if Katie was pregnant, and he retorted that he was aware. She reported him to the police, and the children of Stephen and Alyssa were questioned by the police, but no one was taken into custody. Stephen Pladl wed his daughter Katie on July 20th, 2017 in Parkton, Maryland, 2 months after his divorce from Alyssa was declared permanent. Along with numerous additional guests, the wedding ceremony was attended by Stephen's parents and Katie's foster parents. Katie's foster parents thought she was old enough to make her own decisions and wanted to support her in finding happiness. Bennett was the name given to the child born to Katie and her father. The happy time for Katie and Stephen did not last long when they moved into their new home in Knightdale, North Carolina. In January, Stephen and Katie were detained on incest-related accusations. They were given a bond release and told to keep their distance from one another. The child Bennett was given to Stephen's mother. Katie re-entered the residence of Tano and Kelly Fusco. She would go to his grandmother's house in Waterbury, Connecticut every Tuesday and Thursday. On April 12th, Stephen Pladl was aware that Katie would visit his grandmother. Stephen drove to New York on the evening of April 11th to pick up Katie before she left to live with her foster grandma. By the time Katie called Stephen, the romance was over. On April 11th, 2018, Stephen abducted Katie's infant from his mother before they met. After that, he took the infant home, where he killed it by asphyxiation. The body was left in a closet. Stephen shot Katie and her adoptive father at the intersection of Route 7 and 55, killing both of them. Stephen's mother informed the operator that her son had claimed to have murdered his infant. Stephen Pladl's wife and he had a phone breakup yesterday, and he informed her that he was en route and would return after giving her the baby. Unfortunately, 4 people died in one day as the disturbing story came to a conclusion. We may never fully understand Stephen Pladl's thoughts or motivations, but we do know that his acts have destroyed the lives of countless others. Christa Pike's mother introduced her to marijuana when she was a teenager because she preferred to party rather than be a parent. Christa was essentially raised by her grandma because Christa's father refused to care for her. She would receive a borderline personality disorder diagnosis while incarcerated. By the time Christa Pike left high school, she had a difficult existence. Later, she enrolled in Job Corps, a federalist government initiative that provides low-income adolescents with career training and preparation. She resided on the Knoxville, Tennessee Job Corps campus when she was 18 years old and prioritized her relationship with Pladl Shipp over her career studies. Since he was 9 years old, Shipp has been a practicing Satanist. After she met him and started wearing a pentagram necklace, Christa converted to Satanism. Pike was a possessive, envious type of girl who was obsessed with Shipp. Even though Colleen Slummer wasn't her opponent for Shipp's affections, she mistakenly thought she was. She expressed to a friend her hatred for Colleen and her threat to kill her. Pike, Shipp, and Sadola Peterson persuaded Slummer to go on a walk in the woods that night, January 12, 1995, with the promise of marijuana. When the 3 reached the woods, they started to attack Slummer. Pike had a butcher cleaver and a box cutter with her. Even though she insisted she was just trying to scare Slummer, Slummer was repeatedly booted by Pike, Shipp, and Peterson as she carried a torch. Then, after 45 minutes, Pike took out a box cutter and started cutting Slummer at least 300 times. While Slummer was still alive, Shipp etched a pentagram on her stomach. Slummer begged for her life as she bled to death, stating that if she was given the chance to live, she would travel to Florida. Slummer was informed that Pike would soon pass away. Then Pike used a chunk of asphalt to hit Slummer in the head and break her skull. Pike grabbed a trophy from Slummer's skull and showed it to her flatmate. Pike took pride in the killing. After the police found the deceased, Christa Pike went back to the crime scene with some other people. She seemed ecstatic to see the body. She readily confirmed her guilt when questioned, even acting out some of the murders for the authorities. She even mimicked Slummer's body language. Slenderson and Shipp also acknowledged their roles. Slenderson was given a 6-year term with probation. Shipp was given a life sentence. Pike was given a death sentence and is now waiting to be put to death on death row. She was Tennessee's youngest death row inmate in 1996 when she was just 22 years old. After attempting to kill Patricia Jones in 2001 with the help of another prisoner and a shoestring, Pike was found guilty of attempted murder in 2004. A prison break scheme was prevented in 2012. In a wooded area of northeast Philadelphia, on a chilly day in February 1957, a college student discovered a boy's body inside a cardboard box. After waiting a day to call the police, they set out to identify the youngster, ascertain who killed him, and discover how his body ended up in a box. It was a puzzle that would elude people for years. The youngster, who was previously estimated to be between 4 and 6 years old, was later found to have been battered to death, according to an autopsy. But there were few hints, and numerous attempts made over the years to solve the crime were ineffective. The victim went by the moniker "the boy in the box." Some people referred to him more tenderly as America's unknown child. Joseph Augustus Zarelli is currently recognized by his name. He was 4 years old when he passed away, according to Philadelphia police officials, who revealed this during a news conference on Thursday. DNA and genetic genealogy techniques have recently transformed the field of cold case investigation. According to Captain Jason Smith, investigations are ongoing. A judge gave detectives permission to exhume Joseph's body and use contemporary DNA analysis in April 2019, which was the first stage in the process that finally led to his identification. According to investigators, this assisted them in finding relatives, including his mother and father, who are now deceased. Although the authorities declined to reveal their names in order to respect their right to privacy, he has siblings who are still alive. The use of hair comparisons, footprints, x-rays, and other techniques had failed over the years, but the genetic genealogy technique achieved success. law enforcement representatives made a commitment at the news conference to use genetic genealogy methods to identify further unidentified bodies and unresolved cases in Philadelphia. Elmer Palmer, the first policeman on the scene on February 26, 1957, admitted in an interview with the New York Times, published in 2007, that he first believed the case would be solved shortly. Officials announced Thursday that several of the detectives who worked on the case over the years passed away without seeing it resolved. According to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, the kid was presumed to have been missing for a few days and was underweight. According to the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, he had been covered in a flannel blanket and was not wearing any clothes. His fingernails had been clipped and his hair had just been cut in a way that suggested it was not the work of a skilled barber, according to the national standard. In his interview with the Times, Mr. Palmer remarked, "It looked like a doll." I later realized it wasn't a doll. The little leads that authorities had at the time proved unsuccessful, since cold weather accelerated the decomposition of bodies, making it difficult to identify exactly how long the youngster had been dead. The college girl must have been scared since she waited a day to call the police. Before contacting the authorities, she confided in a priest. The boy's body was discovered close to a man's corduroy cap. The cap was located at a nearby shop. The proprietor of the shop noticed a strap on the cap and recalled a single-handed customer wearing the cap. However, the individual was never located. The cardboard box the boy was discovered in was also tracked by the authorities to another neighboring store. According to the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, the box, which was labeled furniture, fragile, do not open with a knife, initially contained a bassinet. Investigators were able to locate the buyer despite the store's cash-only rule, but there was no connection to the youngster. The local hospitals, clinics, and orphanages were all investigated by the police. They published the boy's photos in publications and mailed them along with utility bills. Storefronts had posters with his likeness. The information regarding the boy's murderer eventually ran dry. Thoughts about his identity lingered nonetheless. One hypothesis was that he was a Hungarian refugee who immigrated to America in 1956 following that nation's revolution. Some thought he might have been the offspring of a funfair worker who had several children pass away mysteriously. Others believed he was the offspring of a local roofer. These stories were really disturbing. Let us know in the comments section below what your take is. We are very curious to know if you consider him guilty or not. Until next time, keep your eyes peeled all the time.